So, Skystrikers for Master Duel. So when I first started Master Duel, I've played the TCG for a couple of years now, on and off, and I knew Skystriker was a very strong deck. And going into it, I'm a completely free to play player, so I didn't want to spend a ton of money in this game. I wanted to have a deck that's gonna stay consistent and that can adapt to majority of the metas. And I figured Sky Striker just fit the bill on that the most. And I know it's not that expensive, considering the only URs we really need are... There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, basically. You really only need 7 URs to build this deck, and the rest is rares and a couple super rares. And so, building a Sky Striker deck is not that much of an expensive investment, and it's a deck that's going to carry you through a ton of ranked, so I think that's why Sky Striker is one of the best decks in Master Duel. So going over my build, it's pretty budget, and like I said, it's been my main deck that I've been playing so far. It's the one I put the most time into in this game. So starting off super simple is just 2 Effect Veiler, and then we have 3 Ash Blossom. Effect Veiler is a very important card in this deck. I would almost consider cutting the Ash to 2 and the Veiler to 3, because you use Veiler with Celine to summon Access Code Talker. But for right now, I feel like Ash is just way too valuable when you're going second. So right now it's just 2 Veiler, 3 Ash, and then of course we have the 3 Ray. Ray is literally the only card you want to see on your first turn. Ray gets all your plays. She's your main monster, of course, because you only run 10 monsters. So I mean, and Ray's majority of them. So Ray and then 2 Rose. The Rose ratio is a lot of up for contention on a lot of people. I prefer 2, just because I feel like spell access is more important than the Rose, and you really only ever need 1 Rose from my experience. So going into that, I feel like that's the most solid ratio. Is like I said, I could up Veiler to 3 and cut Ash to 2. But like I said, I feel like Ash is just way too valuable when you're going second. Going on to spells, there's literally the deck's all spells. If you don't know how Sky Strikers work, they're a super toolbox deck, and having more spells in the graveyard, at least 3, is what really sets off all of your plays. So the first spell in the deck is the free Raigeki that you give you, and the second one is the free Monster Reborn. 2 very important cards. It's really kind of a really good handout that they do give you these cards for free, just because they are so influential. You'll run them in every deck. This is a warrior-based deck. Ray is a warrior, so we have the 1 free reinforcement of the army. This card is literally at 1 for a reason. And then we run the 1 terraforming. That is one of the URs that you have to craft, and it runs with our Sky Striker Airspace Area 0. So terraforming, you don't necessarily have to have it, but it does just add a very consistent way to put a spell in the grave, and it also gets you Area 0. Alright, the draw power of the deck is Pot of Desires. I love this card. I think this card is super... it's a +2. It's not a -9. It's a +2. It's a super risky card to use, but with this deck, you really only need 2 cards to get your combo started, and you can use almost any 2 cards. So as long as you have so you have Engage, you have Ray, and you have Hornet Drones. As long as you have 1 of those cards, you can make plays. Speaking of Engage, we do run 2. That is one of the URs that you either have to craft or pull. I was able to pull a majority of my Sky Striker cards in 4 rolls of 1 pack. That is a little lucky, but it only cost me 4,000 gems to build this deck, and this deck is a meta contender. So Engage is definitely at 2. If you're gonna have any cards in the deck, it has to be to Engage. The rest of the Sky Striker spells are pretty up for your opinion. So I mean, you don't have to have 2 Afterburner. But like I said, I'm a free-to-play player, and this is kind of a budget deck, but it is also just super easy to be meta contender. So Afterburner at 2, and then Jamming Waves at 2. That's just 2 monster pop, 2 spell pop, and then when you have spells in the grave, they flip and they're vice versa of each other. So I mean, I feel like they're super good just because it's always going to just pop back row or pop a monster if you need it. And not a lot of decks right now in like the lower ranks especially have single target protection, so Afterburners is super good. I play one Vector Blast. This is the card that is kind of interesting when you have a lot of... I mean, it gets you 2 spells in the graveyard usually, but also it also pops all of your opponent's monsters back, extra deck monsters back into the deck. So, but it's not that good considering there's a lot of Monarchs rolling around in the lower ranks. I use the free Lightning Storm they give you for opening up the bundle packs just because it's a one-of that you can use and it's a really good top deck. Hercules Base is a very important card. However, I only think you need to run one just because it's super searchable. Hercules Base along with Kagari here and Shizuku and Engage is a super good combo. So if you have a Shizuku and you have, or I'm sorry, if you have a Kagari and a Hercules Base equipped, and you use Area Zero to pop your Hercules Base, you can get an Engage back, your 1 copy of Kagari back, and your Shizuku back just by popping Hercules Base. So that's why it's in the deck, just to recycle your resources. We've talked a lot about Area Zero. I run 2 in the deck, just because we do have the terraforming to search it, just so we don't have to run 3. So what this card does is basically pot a Duality, but only for Skystriker cards. And it also pops a spell or trap card that you have on the field. So it gets you spells in the graveyard as well. We have 2 multi-roll. Multi-roll is a card that when I was learning the deck I didn't really see the value in. But I definitely see it now. Just because you can... up to the number of Sky Striker cards... Sorry. Up to the number of Sky Striker cards you've activated that turn, you can set that amount from the deck with different names. And that's insane. You can go from an empty back row to having full back row, which includes your Widow Anchors, which includes Shark Cannons and stuff like that. So multi-roll is definitely like the most important card. I try and get it as much as I can. For our spell and trap card removal, aside from the jamming waves, we do just run the 2 Mystical Space Typhoon from the Synchro structure deck. Like I said, this is a budget version, just because I didn't want to go too hard in my first deck. But Mystical Space Typhoon is always just a good card to have. One more thing with this deck, if it usually has a 1 or a 2 next to it, play that many copies just because those cards are broken. So Engage, this card is literally... It's the most broken card I've ever played in Yu-Gi-Oh! This card is so much at card advantage, and 1 card, it's insane. Same thing with Hornet Drones. Hornet Drones is just another copy of Ray, but it's also any of your Link monsters, and so Hornet Drones is super, super valuable. Definitely play it at 1 just because you have to. Going into Widow Anchor, you can only run 2 copies, so I definitely run 2 copies. Widow Anchor, I would say, is your best offensive or defensive spell. It's a effect veiler, but it's also a snatch steal or a change of heart. So you basically just take control of an effect monster on your opponent's field, and it's super, super easy to just overwhelm your opponent. You can use that monster to link climb or just OTK if they have a big monster like Eldritch, the Golden Lord, or something like that. Then I run Eagle Booster. Eagle Booster is okay. It's basically a Forbidden Chalice. That's essentially it. It just makes some cards that can be controlled. It makes one of your cards unaffected by battle, or whoever you use it on, and then they can't be destroyed by battle. So it saves your Link monsters if you need them, or it can dismantle an effect. Shark Cannon is basically a baby Widow Anchor, and we do run 3 copies of it, just because it's a searchable DD Crow, and you can also steal an opponent's monster from their graveyard, and you can link climb with that. And then the last card is just the free Solemn Judgment they give you from the bundle. Not really much to explain with Solemn Judgment. It is just Solemn Judgment. Negate anything for half your life points. Super, super chill card to use. Okay, going into the extra deck, we do run the 1 Kagari. TCG has 3 copies, and this game only has 1, but I feel like 1 copy is just fine. Of course, this deck would be way, way better if it had more than 3, but 1 is manageable. Next is 3 copies of Shizuku. Shizuku is like your ace card that you'll always go into on your first turn, just because it searches any of your Sky Striker cards. So I would always I would like summon Ray, go into Hayate if I can do damage, and then from Hayate go into Shizuku, so on your end phase you can search. Or if you're going first, you can just Ray into Shizuku, and then grab any of your cards. So speaking of Hayate, we do use one copy of Hayate. She just attacks directly. And once she attacks, she can dump a card into the graveyard to give you spells in the grave. So super, super good card. Definitely run Shizuku and Hayate at 3. And then our next card is Kaina. Kaina is kind of underwhelming compared to all the other Skystriker monsters. You don't go into her much. I will go into her maybe on like a second turn if I have a lot of spells to use just to gain 100 life points. Her stopping attack effect isn't the greatest. I don't really see it ever come up, but she is there just to be another name. Our next card is Hauki Fibrax. This is one of the staple extra deck monsters that I do recommend you craft just because he can be used in every deck. So Hauki Fibrax gets us into our Access Code Talker. And that's basically the only reason he's there. And then we do run one Hita the Fire Charmer. This can be a Nightmare Phoenix if you would like it to be. But I like Hita the Fire Charmer just because she's an easy way to go into Celine. And Celine also gets us our Access Code Talker. I do run two copies of Zeke, sorry. Zeke I use relatively frequently. She can get up to be a 2500 beater on the first turn that she's summoned, and that is a permanent attack gain. And then other than that, she's a target banish. So Zeke is very, very influential, and also she's a link too, so it's easier to link line up to your big monsters. Celine, not really much to go into Celine. With Effect Veiler, she's able to go into Access Code Talker, and that's the only reason she's really in the deck. And then Access Code Talker. I've talked about this card in every video I've ever posted for this game. Access Code Talker, if you don't have it, craft it. Just because it's a Link version of Dark Arm Dragon, and it is absolutely broken. If you summon this card, you're more than likely going to win the game. So that is my my personal Skystriker profile. There's not a lot of different decks of this, but I feel like mine is pretty budget, pretty standard, and it gets the job done. So I may throw on a replay of me fighting my first time fighting an Eldritch player, and then we'll end the video with that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll let you watch the replay. If you would like to, you can like the video and subscribe. You don't have to, but it does make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside when you do. So thanks for watching. Bye.